generation died during the book of Numbers, because from Numbers to Deuteronomy is 40 years.
Right.
Deuteronomy 1 says in the 40th year, or something like that. It says it starts off saying,
What's your password to your Yahoo account?
That's my normal password. MasterZ123@yahoo.com.
What's the password?
It's the password.
At yahoo.com?
I think so. No, you're not the no. Hey, you just gotta remember that stuff.
Masters123.
Yeah.
Capital?
Imagine.
Hey, we're live,
I don't know
Zach.
hold on. My wife's.
Oh,
Hold
just
on.
mute it.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Hey, so we're gonna go over that again.
Yeah, I think when he comes back, hopefully we can go over that and try to figure it out what he's talking about. Because I was trying to figure this out a little, understand it myself, and I was looking at like Deuteronomy 10 all the way to the end of Deuteronomy. Moses is telling them, you've got to do this law, and repeats everything they're supposed to do, basically. And the funny thing is, he really doesn't talk much about the priestly duties, but he kind of repeats everything, and then he says, "I know you're gonna disobey me right after I die, pretty much shortly after I die," and he gives them a song to witness against them. And so I was trying to figure out Deuteronomy 28, because people think that they're still under that persecution today, but to me, I think that was fulfilled a long time ago. But
So,
you were saying the difference, Zach.
Yeah, I just need to get my charger, and I don't know where my cord is. Whatchamacallit? Well, I was pretty much like, we all are in agreement that the book of Deuteronomy starts 40 years after the first generation dies.
Right.
Hold on one more second. Babe, where's that long extension cord for Brown? It's not in the room. But yeah, so it starts 40 years past, the second generation. And this is how I see it. It's a third covenant. This is a covenant of itself, but it's added with, goes hand in hand with the second set of tablets from Exodus 34. And I say that because of Deuteronomy 29 verse 1. If you read that, it's pretty profound.
So what do you think the difference is between the Book of Covenant and the Book of Law, though? I'm not seeing where
the Book of the Covenant is Exodus 19 through 24, and it's definitely not.
So you just think it was before the golden calf is the Book of the Covenant, and the Book of the Law is after.
Yeah, in some sense you could say that, but in reality, it's how I'm trying to say and not be so confusing, because it is very confusing. Unless we just go through the whole thing all over again. I'm just trying to sum it up as best I can. The Book of the Law is the Book of Deuteronomy. And the second covenant is Leviticus and Numbers.
And remember, in
the Book of the Covenant is Exodus 19 through 24.
Well, what do you think of that, why it says that there'll be an everlasting covenant so much?
As long as it lasts?
Well, again, it also says that the Levites will be forever. And everlasting, you have to think about it. Everlasting is something that has no beginning. Everlasting, it was not created. It's just like everlasting.
Were the Levites mentioned in Revelation to the 7 churches?
No, not that I know of.
It says everlasting covenant in Revelation?
No, I was asking, are they mentioned? Are the Levites mentioned in Revelation?
I mean, no, the Levites are over with.
Yeah, I totally missed something if the Levites were in Revelation, because I don't think they are.
Yeah, the Levites were for a time. The biggest thing is
Yeah,
like a
they're
big
actually
thing.
taken out of the list in Revelation, from what I know.
What do you mean taken out of the list? Could you elaborate on that for me?
Well, it lists 12 tribes, right? And Levi's not one of them. You
I
can
think
go, when I get done here, I can go pull it up.
I
Okay.
think he is. It's in the 144,000 when it mentions 12,000 from each tribe. I actually think uh
Oh, that's interesting.
I think Levi is mentioned. I know Dan and
Oh, is it Dan? Is that the
I
one I'm
think it's
thinking of?
Dan and Ephraim aren't mentioned. I know the 144,000 is where, like Revelation 14.
I think you might be right. I think it might be Dan.
Yeah, I know it's Dan, and I'm not sure if it's either Ephraim or Judah. No, not Judah. It's either Ephraim, Manasseh, or Joseph, because they're really all like the same tribe, really. But yeah, the Levites. I mean, the biggest thing is what the Hebrew roots, like hardcore, like people will say, is if you read Numbers 18, it actually says, like I'll just read it to you. It says, "And Yah said to Aaron, you and your sons and your father's house, you shall bear the iniquity of the temple, and you and your sons with you shall bear the iniquity of your priesthood." So it's really interesting. The father's saying it's your priesthood, Aaron's priesthood, and that he's going to bear the iniquities of that priesthood. Verse 2, "And also your brothers, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, you shall bring near with you, that they may be joined to you and minister to you, you and your sons, in your being before the tent of the testimony." So right there, it's like the tribe of Levi is being joined to Aaron, to being Aaron's all one, tribe with Aaron. And then verse 3, and it says, "And they shall keep your charge, the charge of all," it says, "and they shall keep your charge and the charge of all the tabernacle only. They shall not go near the vessels of the sanctuary and to the altar, and they shall not die, either they or you. And you shall be joined, and they shall be joined to you, and shall keep the charge of the tent of meeting for a service for a tabernacle, and the foreigner shall not go near to you. And you shall keep the charge of the sanctuary or the tabernacle, and the charge of the altar, and there shall be no more wrath against the sons of Israel. And behold, I have taken your brothers, the Levites, from the midst of the sons of Israel as a gift. They are given to you by Yah to do the service of the tent of meeting." Verse 7, "And you and your sons with you shall keep your priesthood." So again, it's Aaron's priesthood, not God's priesthood. It's your priesthood in everything that pertains to the altar and to that inside the veil, and you shall serve. I have given you the priesthood as a service of gift, and the stranger who come near shall be caused to die. And Yah spoke to Aaron, saying, "And behold, I have given to you the charge of my heave offerings, and all the devoted things of the sons of Israel. I have given them to you for the anointing and your sons by a perpetual statute." Hold on, I'm just looking for it. I thought it was earlier in that. It talks about that it's a salt covenant. Here we go. In verse 19, right? I thought it was earlier, but it's verse 19. "All the heave offerings of the holy things which the sons of Israel shall lift up to Yah, I have given to you and your sons and your daughters with you by a never-ending statute, a covenant of salt. It shall be forever before Yahweh, to you and your seeds with you." So right there, it's clearly saying, and then a lot of people will be like, "Oh, well, salt, it's just always there," and Rico Cortez really goes into salt covenants. But yeah, so just stuff like that, like everlasting, forever, throughout your generations, forever and ever and ever and ever. It's a salt covenant, this is definitely the part that was added. This thing, it wasn't olam, the Hebrew word there. Olam just means into a point. And then we see in Galatians chapter 3, 2 Corinthians, Hebrews, chapters pretty much like the whole book, talks about these things that have ended. They have come to its completeness, its fullness. And now it's a new age. It's a new day. It's a new covenant. It's a new and living way. So we see that, things are fulfilled, changed. But again, Numbers, the book of Numbers, is a part of that 40-year punishment because of Exodus chapter 13 and 14 with the spies, when they sent in the 12 spies, and 10 of them gave a bad report, and the people actually say that they wished that they would die in the wilderness, that it would be better for them to die in the wilderness than to go into the land that was promised to their forefathers. So God pretty much says, okay, your wish is my command. And he kills them all.
You're talking about like the Levite being ended, but I'm wondering if that's true or not, because of Malachi 2 talks about, he gives a warning to him that not to break his covenant, and then he pretty much says some of them are going to be punished because they do. But then on Malachi 3, talking about John, I think, and then Christ, it says, and he will sit as a refiner, purifier of silver, and he'll purify the sons of Levi and refine them as gold and silver, and they shall offer to Yahweh offerings in righteousness.
Yeah, that's one verse, and then people use Isaiah 66. I really can't answer that one in Malachi, but what I can answer is in Malachi, the next chapter, it actually says that all this stuff is to the end. It says that you're going to keep the laws of Moses, and this is talking about when God comes with fiery flames of furnace to kill everybody and stuff. And he says, remember, in chapter 4, the next chapter says, remember the Torah of my servant Moses, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel, the statutes and judgments. Behold, I am sending you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yah. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers of the sons to the heart of the sons of their fathers, that I not come and strike the earth with utter destruction. And that's the end of the book. But this is how I see it. This is talking about Yeshua's time. Because look at verse 2. Verse 2 says, but to you whom fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise up with healing will be in his wings. And so again, like that right there.
Yeah, if you look at Malachi 4:6, where it talks about he'll turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, the hearts of the children to their fathers. Luke 1:16 says, and the power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, the disobedient to the wisdom of just, to prepare a people prepared for the Lord. So definitely, I would say, is the first coming.
Yeah, so I would just say again, so maybe chapter 3, it's purifying the Levites, because now here, for an example, we have
well, that's what I'm saying. He purifies them, and so they still continue. They're not destroyed. And if you look back to Malachi 2, it says, I think that it's an everlasting. Let's see.
Yeah, he purified them before the second coming, because remember, you have the 400 gap period from Malachi to Yeshua. You have where the book of Maccabees are in, and we can see that the Maccabees actually, they instituted their own priesthood. They instituted more things when they won back the temple and everything. And the priesthood during that time, then Rome comes in, buys out the priesthood. And so the high priest could be whoever has the most like political gain or whatever. But God still kept that remnant. We know that Zechariah was a true Levitical priest. We know that John the Baptist was a true Levitical priest. So he kept that you can say that small refined people that he kept, that they weren't polluted by the gain and they weren't bought in. These people were still sticking to it. And then again, we see the greatest Levitical priest literally say the Melchizedek priesthood is by far the greatest, and that's the priesthood that we're entered into.
So you're just saying from Malachi to the first coming, they're purified in that 400-year range, and there was some true that were following the
Yeah.
true ways.
Yeah, I believe Zechariah. Zechariah says that him and his wife were perfect in the ways of God. We can see Zechariah, John the Baptist was the greatest prophet to ever be born from a woman. You know, so it's like we can see that there's still Levitical people then, but then we have to remember that was a shadow type. All that physical stuff was a
The
shadow.
thing is, it says it was when it couldn't have been the 400 years because it talks about that it happens when John comes. Basically, behold, I'll send my messenger, and he'll prepare the way before me. So it's talking about his time, not the 400 years.
Again, messenger can mean angel. We can see an angel of the Lord came and spoke to Mary. Who knows what happened in that period of 400 years, but all I know is that I can show, according to the New Testament, that there were Levitical priests that were definitely purified and they were righteous in the ways of God, and they weren't bought in like Caiaphas.
Maybe it just means that John was baptizing people and he was purifying that way.
That could be true as well. I just don't think that, like, a lot of people are like, oh no, the Levites are forever because look what the Torah says. And like what I read to you is probably one of the biggest things that they'll read to you, that it's a never ending throughout their generations, and it's a salt covenant. That chapter alone is the biggest chapter for establishing the Levitical priesthood, to show you that it's forever and ever and it's never going to go away. The priesthood is only through Aaron. But if you read it carefully, it actually says your priesthood, not God's priesthood. God's priesthood is the Melchizedek priesthood. And again, that's what we're under. So we have to really think, like, what priesthood do we belong to? You know, we
Yeshua is the high
belong
priest.
exactly. So if Christ is in us and we are in him, right? He says, those who keep my word, me and my Father will make a dwelling place with you. So we have the Father, the Son, we have them in us. It said that the Holy Spirit is in us. We have the Father, Son, Holy Spirit in us in him, and all that amazing stuff. So we are one body, one spirit. Everything is one. Jesus Christ is the head. We're his body. Jesus Christ is the priest, the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. That would mean we're in his priesthood. That's it. To me, that makes a lot of sense. You know, again, for 2 Peter or 1 Peter chapter 2 talks about that we are a royal priesthood. The only kingly priesthood that there is in the entire Bible is the Melchizedek priesthood, which literally just means king of righteousness.
I definitely see that Christ is the priest of Melchizedek.
He's the
I mean,
high
that kind of
priest.
infers that we are, but I just don't see it anywhere where it necessarily says that. But I don't really know much about this subject.
Yeah, you have to use like Jesus. You have to really like look at it and say, okay, like with Aaron was the high priest. So his sons that came from him were priests, right? In Hebrew, they're called Cohens, but Aaron was the Cohen Haggadah. He was the great priest, the high priest, right? So Christ is the high priest, but we are underneath Christ, which we would be the priest, the Cohens. He's the Cohen Haggadah.
Why couldn't we be the lesser priest and be Levite priests under the Melchizedek priest, the high priest?
Because we are born from the Spirit, and we are born from Jesus Christ, which is Melchizedek priesthood. And again, 1 Peter says that we are a royal priesthood. The Levitical priesthood did not have anything to do with any kingship.
Gotcha.
That was a separation. You could not be a king and a priest in the Old Testament. But there was a prophecy in Zechariah chapter 6 that says that Jesus would be king and priest, and he would build the tabernacle. I'll read it to you. Zechariah chapter 6. If I can find it, that is. Zechariah, here we go. Zechariah chapter 6, verse 11, 12, and 13. And like in the Hebrew, it plays a pretty interesting little, name play. In verse 11, it says, "And take silver and gold and make crowns and set it on the head of Joshua, the son of Yahuzadek, the high priest." And again, Joshua, Yeshua, however you want to pronounce that name, Yahusha, the son of Yahuzadik, which is Yah, righteousness. And he's the high priest. So it's like a play on word with the names here. Verse 12 says, "And speak to him, saying, so says Yah of hosts, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch, he shall spring up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of God," or Yah, right? "Even he shall build the temple of Yah, and he shall bear the majesty, and shall sit and rule on his throne, and he shall be a priest on his throne. And the council of peace shall be between the two of them." So we can see both of those crownships, the being a priest and a king, are going to be placed on Jesus Christ, the branch, the son of Yahuzadek, right? Now we see Christ. He's a king and he's a priest. And guess what? Paul, the author of Peter, said that we are a royal priesthood, which is a kingly. The word royal is tied into kingly priesthood. So again, there's only two priesthoods in the entire Bible. So just by eliminating one of them, which would be the Levitical, that has nothing to do with kings, there's only one other priesthood left. And it's the same priesthood that Yeshua is the high priest in.
Definitely makes sense. And
then another big major thing is Exodus chapter 19 verse 6 is, if you read that he's going to make a kingdom of priests, right? In the Septuagint, it's the same thing that Peter says. It's a royal priesthood. So prior to making only the tribe of Levites priests, God, before the golden calf, was going to make all 12 tribes, the firstborn sons of all 12 tribes, they were going to be a royal priesthood. Melchizedek priesthood. But again, they broke that. Golden calf added something else. That's how, but again, it doesn't, like, I have a friend of mine that actually says the same thing. He's like, oh, well, it doesn't say we're actually priests in the order of Melchizedek. And yeah, it's true. It doesn't say that, but we need to, how do they, like, exegesis, we need to, discern, we need to decipher the scriptures. We need to study to show ourselves approved.
Does it say that Melchizedek was a king or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. In Hebrews chapter 7. Because Melchizedek is literally just a compound word. In Hebrew, it's Melech Zadik. And Melech literally is the word for king, and Zadik is literally the word for righteousness. So it literally, a translation of Melchizedek is king of righteousness.
Yeah, it would seem to stand then, that we could only be under that priesthood.
Yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense, but you can see it actually literally says that in Hebrews 7 verse 2. It says, "To whom Abraham divided a tenth from all, first being interpreted as king of righteousness, and then also king of Salem, which is king of peace." And that's referring to Melchizedek, which is verse 1. "For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest God." So we can see he's a priest and he's a king. That is not Levitical. And then also, what's really interesting is that Jesus is actually from he is from the same lineage as John the Baptist, right? John the Baptist was Elizabeth was Mary's sister, right? They were some type of kin, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were cousins, is my understanding. John and
Yeah. Yep.
Jesus.
Yep. So that means Jesus has part Levite. If John the Baptist, if Elizabeth was the daughter of Aaron, right? And Elizabeth and what's
Well,
her
if
name?
Christ is part
Zachariah.
Levite, then we're part Levite, I would argue.
Yeah, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. Like being a Levite doesn't that priesthood's done with. So to say that I'm a and we're Levite, so that means we're the lesser priesthood in the order of Levitical. I think that gets completely destroyed by the book of Hebrews saying that has passed away, destroyed in the Greek. It actually says that is destroyed. That whole system done with, bam. Now, and again, we can see the greatest Levitical high priest. It says the least in the kingdom of God, which would be kingdom. Jesus says, but seek first the kingdom of Yah and his righteousness. Well, seek first his malchuth, his kingdom, and his Zadik, his righteousness, Melech Zadik. So we must seek first that kingdom, his Melchizedek priesthood kingdom.
If Christ was a
All things
Levite,
shall be added.
if Christ was a Levite, why would there even be a need to change of the law? Are you sure that he was a Levite?
Yeah, he's a son of Zadok.
Isn't he come from the tribe of Judah though?
Yeah, which is interesting is Aaron's wife was from Judah.
So if he's from the tribe of Judah, then he wouldn't not be from a Levite.
You have right here. I have right here on my notes here. Exodus chapter 6, verse 23. Aaron took for himself Elizabeth, daughter of Amidiah. Yeah. So we'll see right here. If you go to Exodus chapter 6, verse 23, it says, Exodus 6, verse 23. Yeah, and Aaron took Elisheba, however you pronounce that. Elisheba, yeah, the daughter of Aminibadiah, however you say that name. Right? And then, which is interesting, so let's find out who this Aminadiba, or however that person is, right? And you can see in Numbers chapter 1, verse 7. Numbers 1:7 is, and Judah, this is talking about the heads of the sons of the 12 tribes. And you can see of Judah, it's Nahshon, the son of Amminadab. So here we go. We have this person's name. So we can see that Aaron, his wife, was from the tribe of Judah. But the biggest thing is everybody's mixed regardless. But what I'm saying is I'm maybe trying to connect it with Malachi, with the refining of the Levites. I mean, maybe somehow that works in with what Yeshua did, and maybe I'm not sure. But again, the biggest thing is that priesthood had its purpose. It served its purpose. And that's what it was for. It was to, again, the law was good. Again, it saved their lives from utter destruction because God was going to wipe them and kill them all. But
what do you make of like Jeremiah 33, where it says that basically as long as day and night continue, there's going to be a Levite?
Well, where are they?
Well, that's what I'm just wondering.
None of them can even prove it nowadays.
Yeah. And again, you got to remember on the day and night, you can see, I actually have a note on that. Let me see. You said Jeremiah what?
33. What about the idea that Christ is king under Melchizedek and then priest through Levite? Is there any possibility of that?
Well, Jesus didn't officiate as a priest of Levi.
Well, he did when he went in through the temple and overturned a money changer. I think that was a role over Levite there, right?
No, those weren't the Levites. I mean, all I'm saying is that Christ, his
I'm
priesthood,
not saying that. I'm not saying he didn't take on a priestly role, but I'm saying I don't think he inherently is a Levite.
I mean, I can show you in the Bible that he is, but I'm not saying that that means anything. Genealogy means nothing now. And when Christ died, these hierarchies in the tribes, like, oh, only a Levite has the priest. Well, no, it doesn't. Every single believer in Jesus Christ is a priest. That is not what the Levitical priesthood's not like that. The Levitical priesthood is specifically only the sons of Aaron. That's it.
Yeah.
So again, we can see the other priesthoods, only two priesthoods. The other priesthood, which is the order of Melchizedek, it's so much greater that it's not bound by a specific tribe.
Yeah.
It goes way above all that.
You know, actually, back in Revelation, I was still looking this up about where are the Levites in Revelation.
Revelation 7.
Yeah,
I believe it's Revelation 7. Where the
I think there might be a clue here too, just in the first Revelation 1, in the 6th verse, where it talks about well, it starts in I guess in the 5th verse, where it talks about rulers of the kings of the earth, the one who loves us and has loosed us from all our sins by his blood and made us a kingdom of priests to his God and Father, and to him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Now, in there, I also have, there's a couple of notes here about all citizens will be priests at the end. So, if it's talking about all citizens, that would include the Levites.
Yeah, but it's a different priesthood than the Levitical priesthood. And again, that's also actually right now. It says in Peter, it says that to those who believe, this honor is given, that we are a royal priesthood. We are a holy nation, a royal priesthood, a people that is called for a possession. That we are called by, we're no longer, I forget how I'm quoting it, but we are priests in the order of Melchizedek right now. This happened 2,000 years ago.
in the apostolic times, the priests were submitting in the faith, or they were converting to the faith in Yeshua. It says in Acts 6, verse 7. I always bring that up because he didn't cast off Levites as people, just like Paul says. He has not cast off the natural branches or whatever. If they convert to the faith in Yeshua, like Paul did, otherwise they are cast off. That's what I can gather from that.
Yeah, it's always a condition.
Still are Levites. There would be descendants of Levi that believe in Yeshua today. They just don't know it because it's not important.
Yeah, and then when you believe in Yeshua, you come into the Melchizedek priesthood. You become born again, a child of God. And it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going. And we're all just trying to go towards Christ. But again, there's two priesthoods, Levitical, Melchizedek. Which one do you follow? Which road are you going to walk on?
Maybe we're taking it too literally. I mean, maybe you could look at it like this, that the Levitical priesthood is just changed into the Melchizedek, and so it continues on.
Well, yeah, I mean, the only thing is it's not the same. We can't call it the Levitical because Levitical means only from the sons of Aaron can be a priest.
Well, it's kind of like,
I
let's
think
say,
he's saying because to make the prophecies work.
right. So it's just a label.
Because they just mean servants, right? Servants of God.
Yeah, but when it says priest, a Cohen, that's a son of Aaron. So there's a difference between a Levite and a priest.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's changed. Like, let's say, I have a table that's like 100 years old, and I restore it. It's still the same table, but now it's new and redone and glamorous, or very special because it's still old, but it's redone and new.
But what about this? There was the table, which was Melchizedek from the beginning. Then God wanted to have everyone sit at this table, have part of this table, but they weren't able to. So now God had to build another table, which was called the priesthood of Aaron, after the golden calf. And now everybody had to sit at this other table that was added. Because that's how I see it. In Exodus chapter 19, it's talking about a royal priesthood, a kingly priesthood. Then all of a sudden they break the golden calf. Now all of a sudden only the tribe of Levi, only the sons of Aaron can approach the altar. No longer can all 12 tribes do this. It's not the way it was before. God changed. He added something because we broke something.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe Malachi is saying that the Levites are refined into a Melchizedek priesthood now.
Yeah, everybody would. Like I did just say, I said that everyone, that it doesn't matter where you came from, matters where you were going. And when you believe in
Right.
Jesus Christ, you're born again, and now you walk in that path to Melchizedek. But the thing is that in the whole Bible, there's two paths of priesthood. And like, again, there's a lot of people that want to walk to Levite, to Aaron, which we can see even in the Hebrew roots movement. People want to go that route. And say you can't do away with this. This is forever. The Levites are going to be the priests forever. Right? But then you have other people say, no, we see this Melchizedek thing. So it's, which path are we going to go on? Who is our high priest? Is Aaron or is it Yeshua?
The interesting thing, I mean, when did Christ become the high priest?
Hold on.
Because he wasn't stepping over their boundary when he was alive, it seems like. It seems like it was after the resurrection almost.
Well, he was doing things like, a Levi would not touch a leper or all these various sick people, but yet Yeshua would. So he was doing something at the same time that, it was different. He was actually, instead of a Levi touching these sick people and becoming like infected or unclean, not able to serve in the temple, Yeshua would be touched, and instead of their uncleanness transferring to him, his cleanliness, his the goodness of him would make that person clean by their faith.
So high priest couldn't touch a leper, but Christ did. Is that what you're saying?
I believe that's what the gospel tells us.
Well, that's kind
Would
of
you all
interesting,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. If you were in the Old Testament, if we were priests and you were unclean, you couldn't.
Well, I'm just saying it kind of shows that he wasn't really necessarily a Levitical priest then, maybe. Otherwise, he would be breaking the commandments, you would think.
Yeah, I actually see in Matthew chapter 3, You see Matthew chapter 1, it establishes Jesus as a king of the Jews. And then the very first thing that happens is the first word that Jesus speaks. It's talking about him being baptized. And he says to John the Baptist that it is necessary for us to fulfill all righteousness. And again, you have Jesus being a king, a melech, then being baptized, fulfilling all righteousness. He gets baptized, a king coming out of the water, fulfilling all righteousness, Melech Zadik, Melchizedek.
So you think that's when he became a king and priest, when he was baptized, basically?
That's when I believe, how I see it, is John the Baptist ordaining Yeshua. That John the Baptist is pretty much saying, yep, this guy is it. The Levitical priesthood, done. And then you can even see when Jesus dies, the high priest had just ripped his garments. And according to the law, he is disqualified for being a priest. Because if you rip your clothing, the high priest rips his garments, he must die.
That's interesting.
So there's no high priest to officiate Yeshua's death.
So when he
except
tears his
himself.
clothes, he loses that power or rank.
Yeah, you're supposed to die. That's why when you read the Torah portions, or not the Torah portion, but when you read the like Exodus, about when they build the garments itself, like around the neck, it's like double stitched. It's like super powered, like stitch. So it's like really, really, really hard for you to rip it. Yeah, you can see, I think it's in Leviticus 10:6. Leviticus 10:6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and to Ithamar, his sons, you shall not uncover your head, and you shall not tear your garments, that you may not die. And he be angry on all the congregation. As to your brothers, the whole house of Israel, they shall mourn the burning which Yahweh has kindled. So they were not allowed to uncover their heads, or that you may not die.
And he didn't die when he tore the garment.
Yeah, so we don't have there's no high priest to officiate the Passover, the sacrifice for Yeshua, except how I see it is Yeshua himself. He's the legitimate priest, Yeshua. He's the only true priest. This is how I see it. I just see Christ's priesthood just being so much greater than Levitical. He's just bringing back the Melchizedek priesthood, but bringing it to a higher level than it was before. Because now Christ is the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. And it's a new and living way. Nobody ever lived that way before. Not Noah, not Enoch, not Abraham, not Isaac. It's a new and living way. Jesus says, all the righteous longed to see my day.
Yeah, if you look at Hebrews 7:26, it says, for such a high priest was fitting for us, holy, guiltless, undefiled, separated from sinners, and made higher than the heavens.
And that's all about Christ. Hallelujah. And you can even see this too. It says in chapter 8, in verse 5, it says, talking about the Levitical priesthood, who serve the pattern and the shadow of heavenly things, even as Moses was divinely warned, being about to make the tabernacle. For he says, see that you make all things according to the pattern being shown to you in the mount. But now Jesus Christ, has received a ministry which is greater than that. Now, I would say that than that is talking about that shadow, the pattern of the heavenly things. Christ actually entered into the heavenly things because his priesthood, his ministry is greater than the Levitical priesthood. Also, by so much more, he is a mediator of a better covenant, and so are the promises greater than the first. So right there, it clearly shows that his priesthood is greater, that the Levites were a shadow of what was to come. It's all a part of God's, of course, it's all his master plan, how everything works out together, but we see Christ fulfilling that, bringing it all to pass, making the way back through his flesh, him doing all the work for us. So he gets all the glory. We don't get the glory. He does. And look what this, Hebrews 7 verse 19. For the law perfected nothing but bringing in of a better hope, through which we draw near to God. Well, how do we draw near to God? Through the way, which is Jesus Christ. The Levitical law perfected nothing. Those sacrifices, if they could have made you perfect, they would have ceased to stop. Look, it says in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1 and 2, for the law had in it a shadow of good things to come, but not the substance of those things themselves, appearing year by year with the same sacrifices, which they offer continually. They never are able to perfect those who offered them. Otherwise, if they had once been perfected, they would have ceased to be offered. So right there, it says that if that thing was what we want, the Levitical priesthood, they should have only offered one sacrifice and it should have been done. But no, it was a continual thing, that it was to lead up until Christ. Again, that word until is in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 10. It says, but only in food and in drink and in various washings and fleshly ordinances until the time of Reformation has been imposed. So those things were until a specific time period.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, that there's Hebrew Israelites that are pretty much going against Hebrews 10:18, it seems like.
Oh, it's crazy. And literally that exact verse what you just said, I've had people say that the book of Hebrews is in error because of that verse and because of other verses, but that one in specifically because it goes against the continual offering that the Levites are to offer. Remember, the Levites they had to sacrifice every single day, daily, and on the feast days, they had to work triple the amount. Every single day, just work. They never had a break. That priesthood was just the only way God could even look at us. To just keep killing these animals so I could just look at you for 5 minutes.
It was doomed before it started.
Yeah, that wasn't the original plan.
And it only lasted for a year.
Hey, Mercedes.
What do you mean it only lasted for a year?
Sent you all the stuff.
Well, animal sacrifices for sin was only good. He told me it was only good for a year.
Are you talking about the national sacrifice?
The
Yeah.
sacrifice only lasted for a year. That's what Zach just read in Hebrews 2, year after year. I think that's why they did it.
Yeah, that's talking about Yom Kippur.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why. Yeah, that's why we needed Yeshua to give us the to be a final atonement for it.
Yeah, but also you can see that it's not just talking about the Yom Kippur sacrifice, but it's also talking about the food offerings, the drink offerings, the
Yeah, yeah.
washings.
It's pretty
It's all those
all those things.
things. The daily sacrifices, even sacrifices that were done by it's all about Christ. Christ fulfilled all those things. Some people tell me like, oh well, Christ only did away with the sin sacrifice, but we can still do the guilt offerings and the grain offerings and all these other types of sacrifices found in the Torah. But it goes against what the book of Hebrews says.
So, like, where they do the grain offerings and the first fruits every year for the Abib and all that.
Exactly. All those mikvahs, when you read on the day of Yom Kippur, the high priest has to mikvah, which is a baptism, just wash his body all the time. Again, you have the priest washing the leprosy. When you have leprosy, you have to sit outside and you need to be washed on the third day and on the seventh day. And all these things, all that stuff is done. Hold on, guys. Hold on.
You guys reading?
Yeah, I'm reading. How about you?
Yeah, I'm looking up a few things myself.
Yeah, I was just trying to look through those everlasting covenant type things, and majority of them don't really say anything to do with the law of Moses. The only one that I could really find that maybe did was Isaiah 24:5. All the other ones are more like the covenant that he made with Abraham, or the covenant he made with David, or the covenant he made with Israel. They don't really say the one he made with Moses on these everlasting covenants. The only one I'm finding that maybe hints to that is Isaiah 24:5 so far.
Now that I remember, I don't think God ever made a covenant with Moses. Actually, just told him to take the children of Israel into the promised land. That's what his whole mission was, right?
Okay, so who's gonna call me back?
I don't know. I should search the word covenant, I guess.
That's a good one.
Okay, so tomorrow I'll just wait for that text message, and then I'll come.
Somebody in an office?
Oh, she's just on the phone.
Sounds like an office building. Yeah, there's 326 mentions of covenant in the Bible. Genesis. Yeah.
Looking through, just Exodus, Levitical, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, it's never referred to as an everlasting covenant.
Because,
So it
the main covenant.
makes me wonder if the everlasting part is something totally different.
The main covenant is with Abraham, right? That's
Yeah, it seems like those are the everlasting covenants, is that he's going to save his people, as that's the everlasting part.
Yeah, and that's back in Genesis.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to try to look at that Isaiah 24:15. It's kind of hard to determine from that. It was 24:5. I wonder if that had to do with the Sabbath, maybe.
The seventh, sorry?
I'm just trying to figure out what it's talking about in Isaiah 24:5.
That's definitely talking about the Jews, I would say. Yeah. I'm reading. Lord Israel, yeah.
I was just reading Acts 6:7 in some different translations.
Acts what?
Acts 6:7, because I guess people like to accuse us if we talk about Melchizedek. I guess they accuse us of saying that God did away with Levites. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it kind of offends people. Like, oh, don't you know Levites are forever? But Acts 6:7, I was reading it in different translations. NASB says, the word of God kept on spreading, and the number of the disciples continued to increase greatly in Jerusalem. And a great many of the priests were becoming obedient to the faith. I thought that NLT was kind of interesting. It always is, right? But it says, so God's message continued to spread. The number of believers greatly increased in Jerusalem, and many of the Jewish priests were converted too. That's thought, priests weren't from Judah, but except for Yeshua. But that's not what it says. It doesn't say Jewish priests, unless you consider the word Jewish to mean pertaining to Judah, pertaining to Jerusalem, pertaining to Judea. In other words, if it's saying priests in Judea, because it does mention Jerusalem, so I guess that's where they could get that.
Yeah, I'm just reading from, let's see, not even sure what this is, the New International Revised Version. It just says, so God's word spread, the number of believers in Jerusalem grew quickly. Also, a large number of priests began to obey Jesus' teachings.
Yeah, they had to they had to surrender just like John and make Yeshua greater. They became less, he must increase and I must decrease. And I think that some of the priests were starting to accept that faith. It's a specific faith. in Yeshua. It no longer, I mean, because it could be argued that, you know, they were priests, they already had faith in God. And I mean, it's not like we're not saying they were pagans that had to convert from paganism.
Yeah, because if you look at
people from Judea.
yeah, if you look at Acts 6:5, it kind of talks about they had the Jewish faith, and then I guess 6:7 it's talking about they're coming into faith in Christ now.
Yeah. It's different.
Cool.
It's not just Old Testament faith. I mean, the Old Testament prophesied the faith in Yeshua, and it also gave shadows and types of Yeshua, the new faith, but they had to convert. Even the priests converted.
Yeah, I think just trying to go through like Christ's teachings and his different commands, and I've been trying to find like a website that had most of them, and I finally found one that had about, I've only made it to about 4 or 5 of them, but it had about well over 200 different teachings in Matthew, and then I think it also goes on to do maybe Luke or John too. And Matthew had 226 different teachings. So I'm looking forward to hopefully going through those and just see, like, you know, did he teach something different, or did it line up, or was it something new? It seems like it's going to be a combination of both.
I think I'm going to hop off here. I've been up for a long time.
No worries. Get some good sleep, brother.
Yeah, you too. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.